Hi, my name is Phil, and my wife Amy and I are fixing an old house.
Well, that's new.
This is a DIY video. If you decide to finish your basement, you might need to build a floating wall. We checked with our local inspectors to see if there were any special requirements for finishing basements in our area. In fact, there are. If you live in certain parts of the country, the soil expands and contracts quite a lot, so the basement floor slabs tend to move up and down enough to seriously damage the building if you build a wall that spans the whole distance from the basement floor to the floor joists above. In our area, the problem is a kind of clay called bentonite that really expands a lot when it's wet. So around here, walls in a basement are required to be floating walls. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, wait, Phil, how can a wall float? Well, it isn't really floating, it's hanging. It's the basement floor slab that is floating on the clay soil below it. A floating wall actually hangs from the basement ceiling and isn't supported by the floor. We built floating walls on either side of the stairs to our basement. This way we can leave the basement unfinished and unconditioned and meet the code requirement to separate and insulate your unconditioned spaces from your living spaces. We also needed a separation between the gas water heater and the master suite, so we needed a door. We eventually decided to extend the walls past the bottom of the stairs and leave 36 inches of clearance for a landing and a door into the basement. Because the walls are hanging from the floor joists above, if the wood wants to twist or warp, there's nothing stopping it. We forced our walls to stay straight by putting in triple blocking. That's why you see 3 2x4s in each stud bay. You see a tripled up stud where we extended the wall because it was easier to build the next section on the floor and then hang it from the joists above. It might seem like overkill, but that wall isn't moving. It's just not moving. It is really, really solid. We used more than one method to build the walls beside the stairs. On one side, we doubled up the top plate, attached that to the joists above, then we built a triangle, and we filled in inside the triangle with studs. So, how do you build a floating wall? You start by installing a 2x4 anchor plate on the floor. Cut a pressure-treated 2x4 to the length of the wall and secure it to the floor using a heavy-duty construction adhesive and at least a couple of concrete anchors if you have a hammer drill or pins if you have a powder-actuated nailer. Then build the wall, fasten it to the joists of the floor above, and leave it hanging about 3 inches above the floor. Leave a gap of 1.5 inches between the bottom of the wall and the 2x4 anchor plate on the floor. We used a spare 2x4 to help with the spacing. Align the wall with the 2x4 on the floor using what I call an RBFN, a really big nail. Our city calls for a 40-penny nail. Some areas require 60-penny nails. Don't ask me why we still use the archaic penny in the US as a unit of nail size. Just be assured that a 40-penny nail is pretty much a 5-inch long steel spike. I drilled the holes in the bottom plate of the wall the same diameter as the nail, and then just hammered the nail into the anchor plate. This allows the floor slab to move up and down without pushing the wall up and down. But wait, doesn't the wall hold up the floor joists above? No, in this construction, The foundation wall does that. The floating walls are the partition and insulating walls that you build if you finish the basement. As always in this house, we had a special case. There is a former foundation wall in the middle of the small basement on the north end of the house, and when we built a half wall on top of that, it didn't need to float. When we do the drywall in the basement, we'll have the baseboard trim attached to the 2x4 plate on the floor, and we won't connect it to the wall so it can go up and down with the floor and slide up and down on the drywall. But that's another video. Your local permitting office probably has a handout on finishing basements because it's a common DIY project. In this case, if you need a floating wall, it could literally save you tens of thousands of dollars in repairs if the basement floor moves. Here are some tips. I marked the locations of everything beforehand using a laser level to make sure I aligned the markings on the basement floor with the markings on the joists above. I checked my work by hanging a plumb bob from one of the corners. Where the walls didn't align with joists, we put in blocking between the joists so we had something to fasten to. We used a 2x4 spacer to ensure we had a gap of 1.5 inches between the anchor plate and the bottom plate of the wall. We clamped the wall to the 2x4 above to stop it from moving side to side while we fastened it. It helped to put a couple of construction screws in to hold the wall up to the 2x4 above before nailing. We used some clamps and a couple of 2x4s on the floor to align the wall with the anchor plate before hammering in the RBF ends. That would be the really big nails. The baseboard trim will not be attached to the wall. It will be attached to the anchor plate. A door can be framed out and attached to the wall with 1.5 inches sweep on the bottom like we did, or you can frame it and connect it to the floor and use a rubber gasket and long finish nails to hold the frame to the rest of the wall. This is similar to what log cabin builders sometimes do with doors and windows. Your local building codes may require one way or the other. If you're curious why the foundation walls don't move up and down like the floor does, it's because they are installed on deep piers or on footings that reach bedrock. And rather than excavate all that bentonite down to bedrock and fill in with something non-expansive, which you might not actually be able to achieve, it's cheaper and easier to float the walls. If you liked this video, or even if you were disappointed we aren't building a houseboat, please like and subscribe. And don't forget to click on the bell next to the word subscribe so you get notified when I upload another video. Thanks for watching. If you want to do your own do-it-yourself videos yourself, like I do, check out Malik Whitaker's awesome channel, Power Director University. He also has an excellent channel for the mobile version of Power Director if you want to make videos on your cell phone. That's why you see 2 3x4s.